Hi. I'm going to be reading Raymond Ortlund Jr.'s response to an evangelical feminist point of view on Genesis 3, verses 17 to 19. It's from the book Recovering Biblical Manhood and Womanhood, in which one chapter dealing with Genesis 1 to 3 is handled by Raymond Ortlund Jr. So I'll read you the text as it is quoted straight in the book here. So this is Genesis 3, 17 to 19. Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Okay, here is the commentary. God does not say, because you have eaten of the tree which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. God does say, because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree. Adam sinned at two levels. At one level, he defied the plain and simple command of chapter 2, verse 17. This is obvious. But God goes deeper. At another level, Adam sinned by listening to his wife. He abandoned his headship. According to God's assessment, this moral failure in Adam led to his ruination. Another interesting point is the very fact that God addresses Adam with this introductory statement. Because you have listened. God does not address Eve in this way, but God does issue a formal indictment to Adam before his sentencing. Why? Because Adam was the head, the finally responsible member of the partnership. His disobedience, not Eve's, was the pivotal factor in the fall. Notice this. God says, "It is because of you, Adam, that the ground is cursed." God does not say it is because of you both, Adam and Eve, as if they shared equal responsibility in an unqualified sense. The alternate point of view I'm going to read now is from Gilbert Bilezikian. I don't know if I say that right. He says, the fall had spawned the twin evils of woman's suffering in labor and of man's laboring in suffering. As a result of Satan's work, man was now master over woman, just as the mother ground was now master over man. For these reasons, it is proper to regard both male dominance and death as being antithetical to God's original intent in creation. Both are the result of sin, itself instigated by Satan. Their origin is satanic. And here is Ortlund's response. He says, I respond in two ways. First, Gilbert, I'm going to call him Gilbert, misrepresents the opposing view. Responsible interpreters do not advocate demeaning, oppressive male dominance. They advocate selfless male headship, in which the man undertakes to serve his wife and family by providing the leadership that will glorify God and benefit them without regard for the price the man must pay to fulfill that responsibility. headship calls us men to lay down our lives for our families. Second, if Gilbert would still argue that the exercise of male headship is satanic, then I must conclude that he is profoundly misguided. In his conclusion, he refers to the repulsive pagan practice whereby one spouse exercises power over the other. If the mere exercise of headship power is repulsive and pagan, and presumably satanic as well, then is it repulsive when a parent exercises power over his child? It can be, but must it be? Is it pagan when a church elder exercises power over a church member? It can be, but must it be? Is it satanic when Christ exercises power over his church? That cannot be. His headship over us is our salvation. It follows, therefore, that the ugliness and paganism evident in other relationships must be blamed not on the exercise of power itself, but on sinful abuses of the exercise of rightful power. The origin of marital misery lies not in male headship, which God created for our blessing, but in a multitude of other personal factors. Gilbert also labors to mitigate the moral repugnance of Eve's role in the conspiracy of Genesis 3. He seems to wish for Eve a sort of victim status in the affair. One must read his entire presentation to appreciate this unusual moral perspective, but let me quote him at one point. The only ray of hope in the statement of the curse appears in relation to the woman. In Adam all die, but Eve, as the mother of the living, shall bring forth life, and from her seed will issue redemption. But does the Bible set Adam and Eve off as death over against life? Paul in Romans 5 sets Adam and Christ off as death over against life. Gilbert's feminism seems to have swept him away into an anti-male prejudice that completely misses the point of Genesis 3. If you want to read Gilbert Bilezikian's whole article, he gives reference as to where it's from in the footnotes, the footnotes at the back of the book. These are the concluding comments of Raymond Ortlund, Jr. There is no necessary relation between personal role and personal worth. Feminism denies this principle. Feminism insists that the personal role and the personal worth must go together, so that a limitation in role reduces or threatens personal worth. But why? What logic is there in such a claim? Why must my position dictate my significance? The world may reason that way, but does the gospel teach us that our glory, our worth, is measured by... But doesn't the gospel teach us that our glory, our worth, is measured by our personal conformity to Christ? So, just in conclusion, I wanted to mention, if you are an ex-witness who's been following this series, I want to urge you to read or study Genesis for yourself. Read it carefully, because much of the Watchtower theology that you learned about everlasting life, perfection, paradise earth. Sin needs to be re-examined. So that's why I would really urge, go through the book of Genesis and be very careful in reading the text and pay attention to what is there and what isn't there, what it does say and what it doesn't say, because you have a lot of things in your head that really came from the Watchtower and you think it's in the scripture, or at least you think it's implied in the scripture. So just I'm going to add the playlist at the end of this to our Genesis study, and 2 videos. One is called Would Jehovah's Witnesses Disfellowship Adam, Eve, and Cain? Does Yahweh? And the second one is, as a Jehovah's Witness, I thought sin was not my fault. It was Adam's. And sin was about disfellowshipping offenses. So this is a video that I was doing based on readings from William Wilberforce's book, Real Christianity. Thank you for watching.